In this section, we're going to look at reviewing your first packet capture. So as you see here, we got Wireshark's main display open. So what you're going to do is, if you look into supplemental files, there's a file called file1.pcap.ng. That's an actual static packet capture file that I've created, and we're going to actually take a look at it. So all you have to do once you open Wireshark is click on File, Open, and then select File 1 and click Open. So now, before we go into this actual three main sections of the window, which is the intent here, I want to show you what this packet capture actually is. So what I've done is, in this packet capture, I went to two places. I went to udemy.com and I went to fordmotorcompany.com. Now, if I go back to this Udemy, there's an interesting thing here. Because of all the attacks, everything that's been happening on the internet, the Udemy website actually uses HTTPS, the Secure Sockets Layer Protocol, which is a good thing. So when we look at that network traffic, it's going to be different than what we see when we look at the traffic for the Ford Motor Company site, because it was still using HTTP. So now when I go into the actual packet capture and I look at my file1.pcap, you see over here is the actual numbers. So I've got the numbers of the actual packets. And then I just start looking through the different traffic. Now there's a bunch of ARP, address resolution protocol, and we'll discuss that as we get further in. That's the next section when we actually go into interpreting a lot of this stuff. But remember, this first top window is what we call the packet list. So this is the list of the packets in the trace, and these packets show what's taking place between a source and a destination. And again, we have this source of the Netgear, which is the MAC address of a Netgear device, and the broadcast, which is just going to all devices. And again, it's an ARP, address resolution protocol, which maps the IP address to the MAC address. And again, if we look at the packet list and we scroll down here, we see a lot of different packets. And this is the thing, and this is why it's so important to understand protocol analysis. There's so many packets on our network, we want to make sure we can identify those packets and analyze them. So we keep going down. There's a lot of information in here to take a look at, including there's some HTTP traffic. Remember, whenever you see this HTTP traffic, it's going to be in clear text, so we can review all that conversation. We'll do that as we get further into our skill set. And there's some reset packets, and we'll get into what all this means. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to page down in the packet list just to show you this here, transport layer security. This is that HTTPS. So when we use HTTPS, now you see that the actual information is encrypted. So since the information is encrypted with HTTPS, that means it's going to make it more difficult to actually be able to view it. We can review usually what's called the handshake, the communication between the client and server to set up that actual encryption, but we can't view anything else. So that's the top window. Now let's take a closer look at the middle window. If you remember from our slides, we had the middle window gives us the packet details. If I select this packet right here, we see TCP. Now remember, everything starts with a frame, followed by Ethernet, followed by IP in this case, which is the internet protocol. So in the details section of the packet, I actually can get the protocol. So this is the IP protocol version 4, and it tells me the protocol type encapsulated inside of there is TCP. And then following this, I see the TCP section of the packet. So again, as we start building our skills, we want to understand how all this works, and we'll cover that in the next section. So the last thing we're going to talk about in this brief section is the bottom window. The bottom window is the actual bytes. So when you look at that bottom window, you see this is the hexadecimal bytes of that packet. Now, later on, you'll learn how to interpret these hexadecimal bytes and exactly where the start of the header is and all that type of information. For now, we just want you to see this is the actual bytes of the packet. The more you understand, or what we call the lowest level or lowest layer of the application, like the OSI model, application layer, presentation session, those types of things. The lowest level is the physical layer. If you understand the physical layer, the bits and bytes, it makes you much more powerful when it comes to either security, defense, hacking, pretty much anything to do in a career in networks. The more you understand the lowest level of the actual network communication, the more powerful you'll be. Next up, we're going to look at the exciting world of client to server interaction. We're going to look at this ARP, this address resolution protocol, this DNS, domain name server. What does all this mean? We'll cover that in the next section. And this concludes this section.